Thank you, Deepka, for that. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As you said, I graduated from IIT Kgp in '84. Now, IIT Kgp, the history of IIT is about 50, 55, 60 years old. I'd love to know how many of you have graduated before '84. Just a show of hands. And sir, I think you have a lot more experience than I have, so I'm not sure what I'm going to be conveying to you this evening. And how many of you have graduated after '84? Plenty of you. So it's interesting. My boys tell me that I'm already very ancient, and they know more than I do. So I'm not sure what I'm going to convey to you either. So it's an interesting dilemma, but hopefully for the 30 minutes before dinner, I'll be able to pass on some information to you which might be valuable to you. Give me a moment as I... There's a little bit of a problem with the projector, the display is getting crunched, and I'll talk a little bit about that in this context of human and computer interactions anyways. So just to back up a little bit, 25 years back when I graduated from IIT Kgp, you come out of this institution which you consider a temple for knowledge. It helps you in get the most, the best out of the knowledge in science and technology. And I came out passionate about changing the world. And I was very passionate about continuing in India. And I did work in India for a couple of years. After that, I realized that to really fulfill that promise, you need to have a platform where you can reach out to the whole world. And I decided to join Microsoft then with one fundamental reason. Microsoft, those of you who know the history, that company has believed in taking computer to the masses. Today, there's more than 1 billion people who use Microsoft Windows. And that gives a great platform for your work to reach out to masses. So I joined Microsoft in '88, continued with them in Redmond for about 11 years, and then did come back here to fulfill my passion of coming back to this country. And I continue with Microsoft, and I'll share with you some thoughts about, where is this interaction between humans and computers getting to. Now, before I start, it's interesting. I think computers is one area where the advancement, the rate of advancement is so phenomenal, and what is invoked today gets obsolete so soon that it is really a challenge for anyone who's in this field to stay on top of the technology. I'm not sure if there's any other technology which becomes obsolete and new things come in and becomes the rage of the day so often and so fast. So interestingly, when I joined Microsoft in 1988, computers look vastly different from what it is today. In many cases, the mainframes were sort of the big computers of the day, character mode displays. When I was studying computers, many of you might find it funny, my programming was done in punched cards. And that's just 25 years back. And after that, personal computers, they still look kind of big, and they came into the play. Information used to be in 5/4-inch floppy disks, which are long obsolete now. And interestingly, in '88, Microsoft started the Windows and sort of the start of the graphical user interface, and I was fortunate to be part of the Windows team, starting with Windows 2.1. And it's an interesting story. When I went to Redmond the first day I was at job, I struggled with the mouse. I had never used a mouse before that. And this was 20 years back. And my first day at work, rather than trying to get used to Microsoft and my work, I had to struggle a day to figure out how the mouse worked. Any of you now struggle with the mouse? Just a show of hands? All right. There's one, and I'm sure many of you have not raised your hands. I have several in my family, my parents. So it is interesting. And I'll come back to this point. I think one of the problems with computer has been that it has forced us to adapt to the computers. If using a mouse is not very comfortable, is not a natural thing for humans, it has forced us to learn that trick. And in my talk, I'll talk a little bit about how the user interface of the computers need to evolve so that we don't need to adapt to a machine, the machine senses what we try to do and take it from there. So in the last 20 years, since then, devices have proliferated. Phones are really mini computers, and you have machines that you wear on your body like a dress, and which is wear on a body like a dress, which is a computer. You have thin laptops. You have screens which are touch screens, and there's been a huge advancement in computers. And if you take a look at this, it is really an abundance of machines and of different types. But from our perspective, we can roughly categorize them into what we call as 4 form factors. On the left, those are machines which are fixed. These are machines which sit on your desk in your offices, which we call as fixed computers. And then you have laptop, things like this, which you can carry with you, which are portable computers. And then there are specialty devices. You have today, Kindle readers where you can read a book on a machine, or you have your Zune or iPod device where you can listen to music, and we call them specialty devices. And finally, phones. They're computers. They're probably more powerful computers than the computers were when I started. And so roughly, from a computer perspective, these are sort of 4 form factors that the world's sort of converging into. And then if you take a look at the software, you can think of it as a little bit of layers on top of that. I'm not going to a lot of details into this, but essentially 4 classes of software. You have productivity software, people who use computers at their work to advance their business. You have creativity, artists and designers who are using computers to build and create their respective inventions. Communication, phone, email, and all of those are examples of communication software. And finally, entertainment, games and video consoles, which are really computers again, which are helping in entertainment. So the whole focus from the perspective of us in the industry is to really provide these sort of classes across the devices, and that's what the game has come down to. And in this context, there are many things we could talk about, but what I'll focus is how is the interaction of humans with computers evolving? So that's what I call as human-computer interaction. And in the last 20 years, there have been multiple technology waves. Many of you will relate to this. When I started work, computers were character mode screens. You bring up a screen, you have to type out your commands, the computer executes the command. In the late 80s, middle of the 90s, graphical user interface became a rage. It made computer usage much more simple. There was no more of characters, and that's when Windows started and created a revolution. Internet, now you're all familiar with the internet, and you can, from any location in the world, you can connect to the internet, and that's becoming very popular. And then the client and cloud. Many of you know the internet as a repository of documents and images and photos, but we are sort of moving to the world where applications now run somewhere out there in the world, which in the cloud, not necessarily on your machine. Email, Gmail and Hotmail, those are examples where you're mailed somewhere else, not necessarily running your computer. So the software is taking advantage of the computing power that you have in your devices, as well as computing power somewhere else in the universe and linking them together. And interestingly now, I think the world's heading towards what we call natural user interface. And this is what I was alluding to when I talked about my story with the mouse. That on one hand, on the graphics front, we have sort of enhanced the GUI, the graphical user interface. On the top, you have computers which react to your voice. Or on a tablet, you can write out, and there are certainly more improvements to be done in handwriting recognition, but you have machines where now you can type right out. Or you have machines like the phone or surfaces where you can touch the screen and manipulate the devices. But this is still, in some sense, old school, old way of thinking, which forces you to adapt to what the machine is about. I think the world is now heading towards natural user interface, where it is all just about the user, not about the devices. Could there be a world where, and just as a human being, through my gestures, but the machine will pick up my gestures and do something with that? Maybe the environment, the computer is aware of the environment that you are in and adapts to that. Maybe, when you express yourself, anger, fun, laughter, the computer detects that and does something with it. And that's where I think the next big revolution is coming. How many of you have played Xbox or any video game console? I know a few hands that will go up. All the younger ones and some of the older ones. Xbox has become very popular, and other things like PlayStation and Nintendo, very popular, and they're great ways of interacting with the computers. But I'll show you a vision of where Xbox is being headed to in Microsoft, where no longer do you have a controller to control the machine. I'll show you a video. Hopefully the resolution will work out all right. And just see how the user now can interact with the machine without any console, without any controllers, without anything being attached to the person. And that's a glimpse of where the user interface is heading to. This one, I need to hook this up for the sound. Hopefully the sound will come. Looks like I have some problem with the sound here.
Yep, let's do it. This should be good. Let's begin.
Time to toast. Go to the pitch. Hi, going.
Did you like that?
Yeah.
You can, of course, always interrupt me with applause if you so wish. So this is where the user interface is heading to. As you saw, it was just about the human being. They didn't have to use a machine, a mouse, a controller, any wires, and you have sensors on the computer who then try to interpret your gestures, your mood, your voice, and adapt to them. So in Microsoft, continuing with this theme, essentially our vision, in a sense, is to create seamless experiences that combine the magic of software with the power of the internet across the world of the devices. So that's where our mission is, and hopefully with the work that we do, it'll change your lives, and you'll see how the world changes. I'll show you one more video which sort of talks about what the experience can be in the future. And this is an example from the healthcare sector. You'll essentially see how a human being, and you'll see a lady who's jogging down the road. She has a small device on her hand which broadcasts her health information to health workers who are located elsewhere. You also see how the healthcare, the workers, the doctors are able to interpret that information, and they live in a world where their devices, the tables and the walls, they're essentially computer devices. And you no longer need to carry multiple cards in your wallet, which is one is a credit card and one is a card key. There's only one little device which works both as your credit card, your card key for getting into office, or even for the doctors to analyze and diagnose the information in there. Have a look. This is where I think the future of software is heading to. So that is a glimpse of the digital world. Thank you very much. And as I said, hopefully in this world, it is a computer which is adapting to human beings, and rather than us trying to figure out how the computer works. So, so what's next? In some sense, I think we'll get from where we are right now, where we are, the computers are working at our commands, to a time where perhaps the computers will work on our behalf. Maybe the machines, all of the machines that I have are trained enough, but by my traits that they can do stuff. Imagine where your laptop logs into your email system and looks at your email and gets rid of a bunch of them before you get to work. Wouldn't that be useful to do? So, and going forward, I think, looking ahead, I think we'll continue to progress down the path where software solutions are built that connect and empower people. And hopefully there'll be breakthrough technologies which can constantly redefine what we do at work and play. And hopefully all of this is towards realizing the full potential for humans. And as Swamiji was saying, hopefully we have kept our mental sanity in place as well, that this is for the betterment of humanity and not to destroy all ourselves. That's all I wanted to share with you about where we are trying to head this country. Happy to take a few questions if you have any. Yes.
So a few years ago, all these immersive videos and force feedback and touch feedback devices were getting popular. A lot of research was going on in that. So is there any future in that still? I haven't heard much in that area.
Yes. So the question was, a few years back, a lot of the immersive devices, the stuff that you wear on your hands and body was becoming pretty popular. And is there a future for that? I personally believe that is still too cumbersome. Software and hardware, you must realize, is progressing at such a fast pace, that there are many innovations that you try out. Some stick and they become the next rage, or like Windows was, and some fade away. I truly believe that natural user interface, where you don't need those contraptions on your body. Computers are smart enough to sense your environment, which will really be the next wave, and that's where I think the future is.
But the feedback part is still important. You don't get the force or touch feedback.
You could still get that. You don't perhaps need devices, maybe through sound waves or some stuff. Sound which does not, you can't hear, but you can still get feedback. I think that's where the head to.
Sir, has it ever occurred to you that apart from what positive things you have said, and everybody knows, I'm sure here, that to some extent, and to certain segment of the society, computers are nuisance? I have several examples to cite. Now, how do you deal that problem?
Right. The question is
a non-nuisance device.
Right.
For example, I need to go to a doctor.
Yes.
And there is a problem about it. So all these things, gesture control and all that, don't you think the nuisance approach to the future rather than real helping the guy like who needs it?
Yes, the question is computers a nuisance or not? I'll perhaps not get into that debate, but I'll just remind, that's how I take a look at it, as everything that is powerful is perhaps a two-edged sword. If you consider the human brain as the ultimate computer, and really, in a way, we are trying to get to that point where we are trying to replicate what the human brain is capable of, and we are far from there. If you just take the human brain as a computer, there are a billion people who are really good, and there are many others who are using the brain for what it should not be used for. So that is always there. But the way to think of it is, you can harness power in both ways. You can say that it's too powerful and stay away from it. Or you say that I know it has deficiencies. It can be destructive, but I'll try to harness it for what it is good for. And I think that's where, at least from our perspective, people in the software and hardware, we believe that that's what we are after. And that comes with a warning that, please be aware of the immense power. And that's where perhaps, it ties back to what Swamiji was saying, that you need to be mentally sane and be mentally strong to not make the wrong mistakes, wrong steps in this way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look at perhaps the man's imagination and application limitations are not there. It can be limitless application possibilities of the software that can match that. But how far is it limited by the hardware development? Because software can always be executed the hardware.
Right.
Hardware, there is a physical limit.
Yeah. The question is.
My second question is.
Yes.
Are we going to see that day when some biryani is being cooked in some recipe program, you can smell the biryani?
The good question. Question is hardware going to limit where we get to it, and will we ever get to the stage where we can smell stuff on the computer? Very interesting questions. And I don't profess that I have answers to those, but I'll share with you what my view is. Hardware, certainly for the last several decades, has certainly kept pace, and in fact has outpaced software innovations in many ways. If you take a look at Murphy's Law, right, every year, every 10 years, Moore's Law, sorry, thank you. Murphy's Law is the wrong one. Computers are becoming faster and stronger. Today, it's interesting, a phone is more powerful than what a mainframe was, a couple of decades back. So I certainly hope that the hardware people continue to push the envelope on that side, and I think for the foreseeable future we will not have that issue of hardware innovation stopping what the mind wants to do. And the question about smell, I have wondered about that. If you think about a movie, and when you're in a cinema theater and you're watching a movie, especially the 3D movies, and everything's real life, and you get immersed in that experience. Like you, I wondered, if you just could have the sense of touch and smell, you would have perhaps replicated people out there with the software. So, it's perhaps up to the next generation, the teenagers in this room and others who are going to pursue this, then maybe they'll pursue that. Limitless. I think the vision here. All right. You talk about vision and the light goes off. So maybe there is an ominous signal here that maybe what we're talking about may not fulfill it completely. But I think the vision here is certainly engineers and people who are software and hardware are trying to get to the point where mind, and we talked about what the sages in ancient India could do, right? They could be in one place, physical place with their body, but they could be in another place with their mental dimensions. That's where we're trying to get to, and let's see if that promise it fulfills itself or not. I have one. Excuse me. Any other questions? I have one little segment to complete, but you sure.
Looking at it differently, if everything is done by computer, what will the human beings do?
It's a very good question. If everything is done by computers, what will the human beings do?
Rather, I wanted to put it a little differently.
Yes.
I mean, as the computer progressed, as the technology progressed, earlier we were mentally calculating something. Then we started doing through a slide rule. Then we started doing through a calculator.
Right.
And now we don't need anything that. I mean, we just do through computers. Now, in the process, it has also your capability to do something which you were doing earlier is also deteriorating. Now, what exactly will be the end to the way you are suggesting?
Right. So I think it's a very good question. Where does this all end? So I think the answer to that, I think, is the computer still, if you take a look at the most fundamental level, is really good at doing repetitive tasks. It's good at doing what you tell it to do. And over the years, what has happened is that aspect of doing what you have told it to do or sensing from you what you want to get done, that has progressed phenomenally. But I think there's still an aspect of the human beings knowing what needs to be done. Certainly in this world, if you take a look at whether it's terrorism or global warming or genetically produced food, there's plenty of problems that I think we need to apply our minds to see how the solution should look like. And then maybe the computers would help us implement those solutions way faster than we would have otherwise been able to do.
And after that?
That is it. I think that as the world progresses, if we get down back to the circle of, Swamiji talked about, Dwapar, Treta, and Satyajug, maybe we are back at that stage when just meditating and it is good enough. And the cycle will start again. All right. Mindful of your time, and we'll break for the next event or next segment or dinner. But before I finish, an important message. As Tirthankarda was saying, I have been fortunate to come from a family where many of my relatives have been part of IIT, and I hold that as a proud memory. Both my uncle and my father, they had long careers at IIT. Both of them joined IIT Kgp in 1950s, and they were there till the 1980s.
We have been taught by both.
Both of you. Professor Amit Chatterjee, he was my uncle, my father's elder brother. He was a professor of physics. Unfortunately, he's no more. About 12, 14 years back, he passed away. On the other hand, I'm really fortunate to still have my father with me. He lives with me in Hyderabad. My mom as well, and we just celebrated their 60th wedding anniversary. So it's been a long, fruitful, journey for them. And my father, he completed his 87th year, and he's at home. And I was asking him, would you love to come to this event? Unfortunately, his age has caught up, and he couldn't make it. But he wanted to share a message. So I had a message from him, and that's how my father looks like. I'll.
I get it from my faith. I want to build the human since I get moment at this evening due to old age. Only thing I can send you my blessing to all of you. May God grant you all the best of everything in life. Thank you.
We could have a session with you at home.
Absolutely.